you very much for those of you who've made it for taking a part of your evening and spending it with us. HX Expeditions has been around for quite a while, although the name may be new to you. But they have been doing expedition travel for well over 100 years with Norwegian heritage. That's a pretty great story. And tonight, joining us we have Barrett and we have Alex who work with HX Expeditions. Barrett is a business development manager with HX Expeditions for the Mid-Atlantic. And then Alex you're actually a guide, is that correct?
I wear many hats, but that's one of them. But I'm the expedition ambassador.
That sounds very official. I mean, the great thing about that, of course, is the diplomatic immunity is always the best.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so yeah. So anyway, without further ado, I'm gonna leave it to Barrett and Alex to talk a little bit about HX and why they're so special. And again, if you have questions, please use the chat box. Otherwise, keep yourself muted for the duration of this because we want to make sure that the spotlight's on the folks who are here to speak with you tonight. So, guys, take it away.
Awesome. Here we go. Share my screen. You should be able to see that, and we'll dive into it. Um, so yeah, Barrett and I are here from HX. You've already had an introduction to the two of us, and you've already heard that we've been doing this a very long time. We're actually celebrating our 130th year anniversary this year. Until a few years ago, we were part of the Hurtigruten Group from Norway. The Hurtigruten Company still exists. It's the coastal ferry company that services that coastline, but we are the global expedition fleet, now standing independently but proudly embracing and celebrating our Norwegian heritage. We offer trips around the world, and if we have time at the end, I'll tell you a little bit about some of the destinations, a bit about myself. Next year, I'm celebrating my 20th year in the expedition cruise industry. I joined as a young man and have been on over 200 expeditions. The majority of my years in this industry have been spent as a guide, as Roger mentioned, an expedition leader, and more recently, I have been working in management roles. A few years ago, I studied some accounting. I got my MBA and decided that I wanted to be able to have a wider influence than just being in command of a ship or an itinerary or an expedition program, but to help support the business and the guests in a more meaningful way. I've been to many parts of the world, but one in particular, which is quite rare, is the geographic North Pole, the top of the world, where I've been on 14 separate occasions. And in my late 20s, I became the youngest person in history to lead an expedition to the North Pole. More recently, I served on the executive team of HX. That came to an end in December. So I led a group of over 40 travel professionals stationed around the world. And my responsibility, my title was Chief Expedition Officer, and my responsibility was to manage HX's product portfolio. So all of the itineraries, all of the programs, all of the activities that our guests get to enjoy were curated, optimized, refined, developed by my team. And I'm able to speak with some familiarity to our programs around the world, some of which I've led and guided on, but all of which I've been part of the development of. So let's dive into it. One of our mottos is to change the way you see the world, and we hope to have that opportunity. And at least in this presentation, I hope to change the way you see presentations like this, because does not follow a standard structure. It's a little bit of a journey. I hope you feel like you're on a journey on this beautiful Thursday evening. So let's dive in just with a quick orientation as to what expedition cruising even is. Most of the time, when people hear the word cruise, certain perceptions come to mind, like, bus tours and parties and floating cities. Of course, this isn't an altogether accurate representation of cruising, but this is what comes to mind for some people. And likewise, when you throw in this wildcard word of expedition, people think danger, hardship, freezing to death, being eaten by a polar bear. That is also not anywhere close to an accurate representation of the expedition industry. So let's flesh out what expedition cruising actually is. Now, We've been doing this for 130 years. The first 100 years were pretty lonely. There weren't too many other companies doing it. But in the early 1990s, the industry expanded, and that was a result of the collapse of the Soviet Union, and a lot of former Soviet, now Russian vessels were available for charter. So when I joined the industry 20 years ago, it was the end of this kind of Soviet-Russian era. I worked on all of these ships, which I can tell you from firsthand experience, were not built for creature comfort. Uh, while they were robust seagoing vessels, they were not optimized for the types of voyages they were undertaking with intrepid travelers from around the world. Here's some pictures from the facilities in some of those ships. Pretty primitive, to say the least. But now we exist in a really inspiring era of expedition travel with purpose-built vessels like this one here, one of our flagships, Roald Amundsen, with exceptionally well-appointed interiors, very comfortable spaces, wellness facilities, incredible food and beverage options. Our ships have this kind of boutique Scandinavian hotel design type feel. And expedition vessels are also optimized to make the most of the destinations that they visit. So there's facilities to get you off the ship as often as possible, to get you out and about, exploring and learning about these destinations. A day in the life of expedition cruise is largely focused on the destination. So most of the time you'll wake up, you'll have breakfast, then you'll have the opportunity to get off the ship in the morning. You'll come back, you'll have lunch, and then you'll often have the chance to do the same in the afternoon. And you can choose from a range of activities. I'll talk to you about some of them, and really curate your own adventure. These ships are like floating base camps or floating safari lodges where you have your accommodation, you have all the amenities that you would expect from a well-appointed ship, but you also have a team of guides. You have equipment like zodiacs, the workhorse of the industry, kayaks, and a paddleboard, snowshoes, all of those sorts of things that you can choose to indulge in if you so wish. We run an all-inclusive program, so that's food and beverage, all your meals, free Wi-Fi, included gratuities and those sorts of things, but also free excursions. So every day there's a range of included excursions that you can choose from. We do have some excursions that you can upgrade to, smaller group excursions like kayaking or camping, for example. But part of the free excursions includes not only excursions that we put on ourselves, like hiking or our science boat, but also where possible, where we're in and around small settlements, we partner with local operators and include, as part of your package, the opportunity to go out with local providers, but also when the opportunity presents, offer an additional option if people want to buy more intimate experiences. So hopefully that gives you a sense of expedition cruising. Let's talk about the areas that we believe HX distinguishes ourselves from others. And there's three dimensions here that we want to bring to life for you. The first is, you've heard about this, we've been doing this for a very long time. The second is we are focused on curious travelers. Those are people who want to learn about the destination in as much depth as possible and who want to themselves get beneath the surface through curated exploration that's focused about learning and discovery. And the third pillar is we're leaders in mindful adventure. That's about holding the places that you go to and the people that live there whenever that happens with the utmost care and reverence. And here's a few insights into what that feels like. So, experts in expedition, I think, is best embodied by the proud 130-year maritime heritage that our officers and captains and navigators carry themselves with. They are part of this long and an exciting history, and their talents, their kind of heritage, really enables a lot of these experiences. Made for Curious Travelers, I think, is best embodied by our science programs. So all of our ships are equipped with science centers, and these are dynamic centers for learning. They are the pride and place of our ships, especially our flagships, as shown here, Amundsen and Nansen, where we have these expansive facilities with specimens, with microscopes, with you can listen to the acoustics that might have been picked up that day. Reading books, there's interactive screens, there's often active scientific researchers who you can talk to and ask questions. And this unlocks a whole new world of possibility where the experiences that you may have had during the day or may have in days to come it- come with more texture and context. The last pillar, leaders in mindful adventure, has two dimensions. One dimension is related to sustainability, so reducing our carbon footprint and our waste, as you might expect. But the other dimension, which is more tangible for me, is the human dimension, which is investing in relationships with the people who call these places home. Like this picture here from a project I was a part of in East Greenland in 2024, and I'm still volunteering with to this day because in this era, when many destinations are reconsidering their relationship with tourism, I think it's more important than ever to travel with a company that really prioritizes those relationships, not only for ourselves, but for our guests who get to benefit from those. And lastly, I want to talk not just about what we are, but what we are not. So we are not mainstream cruising. We are not micro cruising. We exist in this perfect balance between these two worlds, where we offer an uncompromising program that excels in these three areas, where you don't have to compromise on adventure or comfort, and you can travel with the peace of mind that comes with industry-leading sustainability. Now, one thing I'll highlight here is that um, it is possible to over-index in one of these areas, which will always come at the expense of the other.
Adventure.
Someone's off mute, but if you could go on mute, that'd be great. And I'm glad you highlighted adventure. I'll come to that in a moment. But comfort, for example, if you want the longest wine list in the Southern Ocean, or you want 24-hour butler service or rose petals in your bathtub, we are not the company for you. There are companies that can cater to that much better than we can. Similarly, if you want to over-index on adventure and you want to go ice climbing or heli skiing or scuba diving, there are companies that can cater to that better than we can. But those companies specialize in those areas and they compromise on the area that they're not focused on. Whereas for us, we offer this uncompromising experience where you can still enjoy the really well-appointed facilities on board our ships, which are super comfortable. You can go off on daily excursions, you can go hiking, you can go zodiac cruising, you can do a ton of sightseeing and wildlife watching, and you have that industry-leading sustainability to underpin it all. We believe in experiential, not material luxury, and we believe in connection over conquest. And this proposition is really embodied by our flagships, Roald Amundsen and Fridtjof Nansen, the pride of the HX fleet. And what this feels like to be on board is the perfect balance between comfort and adventure, where you can go off on these life-changing explorations and come back to uncompromising levels of comfort, whether in your well-appointed cabin or in the expansive facilities on board the ship. It's about uncompromising adventure, where you can get off and hike serene shorelines, paddle new waterways, stay out late with locals, and watch the northern lights dance above the Arctic sky. It's about pioneering new trails or standing at the tops of summits like this one in Nico Harbor and in Antarctica. And not for a moment do people who travel with us feel like they've compromised on adventure. A lot of companies are talking about sustainability, which is fantastic. We're really thrilled that the industry has started to take this dimension more seriously. But while we talk a lot about sustainability, we also encourage folks to look for third-party validation of these credentials. And we're very proud to be consistently rated not only the most sustainable expedition cruise company, but the most sustainable cruise company in the world. And our flagship, Fridtjof Nansen, was actually recently voted the most sustainable cruise ship in the world. So if these dimensions appeal to you, expedition cruising and what HX offers, then you've come through this labyrinth, and we can talk about some of the places we go and what we do there. So let's dive into that. Let's start off with Alaska. And when I talk about Alaska, I like to frame the conversation in a way that acknowledges that, at least to me, in its purest form, travel is all about discovery. And we all have a perception of Alaska. Nobody who comes to these conversations is hearing about Alaska for the first time, whether it's through stories from years ago from authors like John Muir, whether it's about heroic tales from the gold rush, or perhaps more recently with stories from a popular culture series like The Deadliest Catch. And through these different perceptions and through presentations like this and other conversation you're having, potentially with your Crown Cruises contact, you build up a picture of what Alaska is, what Alaska can offer, and what kind of experience you want to have as a traveler. More often than not, the two travel experiences which are most commonly regarded in Alaska are going on a cruise or going to Denali National Park. And Alaska is actually a great place to illustrate this perfect balance mentality because our ship, Roald Amundsen, operates there during the summer months. And if we look at a representation of cruise ships in Alaska, that sail with below 1,000 passengers. This is a near complete representation of that category. And you'll see Amundsen and her sister ship Nansen dead in the middle there. And the reason for that is that Amundsen will have a sophistication of comfort and amenities that you might expect from slightly larger ships, but without compromising on the adventure and the kind of exploration that you would and should expect from smaller ships. And this is again that floating base camp mentality embodied. Oh, someone's off mute again. And the other part of this perfect balance philosophy is that when you choose to over-index, if you were to prioritize comfort or adventure over that harmony, that usually comes at a cost. And so if you look at just by comparison here, our Alaska programs start at around 450 US dollars per person per day. In that smaller ship category, that over-index a little bit on adventure, but offer less comfortable amenities. It's about double that. So you're paying double for not that much more adventure. So we sit perfectly in between these two worlds, the largest ship in Alaska, the Star Princess, and the smallest ship, the Alaskan Dream, with just 40 guests. There's three main ways to experience Alaska with HX. These are those itineraries. So Inside Passage, the Fjord of the Great Land. This is Vancouver up to Seward or Whittier, over 9 cruise nights, 10 days. We have a southbound voyage, which is 12 cruise nights from Seward to Vancouver. And then we have a long kind of pilgrimage from Vancouver up to Nome with flights back to Seattle. And these are action-packed programs. We've got a range of activities. The days are full of different dimensions for you to enjoy. And these experiences, these voyages, are off the beaten path. They don't go to the conventional cruise ports, the Junos, for example, which we'll talk about in a bit. And also, you don't have to rely on ports because we're taking you out into the wilderness directly from the ship. You're not having to wait in line with tour providers or trying to find or purchase programs on shore. We use our expedition launches to get you out into the wild directly from the ship. So when you're considering Alaska, or when I'm considering Alaska, I ask myself whether you want to stare at distant shorelines or stand on them and smell the fresh sea breeze as it meets the lush forest and tundra, and watch the gentle waves lapping against the shoreline. Do people want to be one of 16,000 people visiting communities like Juneau in a given day, or perhaps sit in a longhouse and hear the inspiring stories and legends from the traditional guardians of these waterways? Or perhaps dip a paddle in the icy waters and glide through the glassy ocean, or feel the mist from a waterfall caress your face as it crashes into the sea. Or maybe people want to channel John Muir's affection for the great Alaskan glaciers and be close enough to hear their rumble and feel their majesty and just bask in the immensity of it all. Or maybe someone wants to learn the scent of a brown bear and hear the crack of shells below its paws, or watch a humpback whale slip beneath the surface of the ocean from the water level itself. At HX, we try and show people Alaska through a different lens, which are the dawn of life-changing adventures where their eyes open more widely to natural wonders, with days filled with discovery, from the grand and majestic to the subtle and sublime. Let's go to another destination while we have time and talk about actually my favorite destination in the world, and certainly in the HX portfolio. It's hard to choose from, but that is none other than the world's largest island, Greenland. I have been to Greenland countless times. I've traveled 90% of its shoreline, and this place has captured a piece of my heart. So when we talk about Greenland, it is the largest island in the world. It's mostly covered by ice. It's got the world's lowest population density, and it is a self-governing region of Denmark. No roads connect the towns, so this country is connected from maritime infrastructure and from small heliports and airports. And in Greenland, Danish kroner is legal tender. Um, Greenland also has a really interesting cultural history that goes back thousands of years, over 4,000 years of human settlement existing here. From the ancient migrations of the indigenous people that came all those years ago to more recent explorations from Europeans, including Vikings, which spent the years following 1000 to 5000 AD on the Greenlandic shores. Um, and then the more recent period of settlement, which occurred in the 1700s and endures to this day, which started when the Danish Lutheran missionary Hans Egede, pictured there on the left, set up an establishment in Nuuk, Greenland, the capital today. The other history, which is really important to acknowledge, is the ongoing and enduring relationship between the United States and Greenland, the really positive relationship, which it has been for many, many, many years, because a lot of the infrastructure in Greenland, including until recently the only international airports capable of taking large jets, and many of the ports, many of the roads around and within communities were built by the U.S. military. And this is a really meaningful relationship that the Greenlanders cherish. It's a place that's really exciting to visit as a traveler from the United States, and you'll be welcome with open arms and be able to build upon this long and proud relationship. Greenland is the majority of Greenland is settled by Greenlanders or the Greenlandic people, which are part of the Inuit culture, which spans Inuit people span from northern Russia, northern Siberia or Chukotka, in the far northeast of Russia, along the Alaskan coastline, into northern Canada, and the easternmost perimeter of that culture's landscape is in Greenland. And HX really enjoys giving the local people platforms in our program, whether it's through culinary experiences or exclusive tours. The Greenlandic people are so welcoming. They're so dynamic. They're just incredible hosts and ambassadors for their country that we take our responsibility to give them platform and to allow them to tell their stories and showcase their home to you as a core part of the travel experience to Greenland. I'll touch on a few of the main settlements just to give you an idea. And if you look at this map, these are the four largest cities in Greenland. And I even hesitate to say cities because when you think about it, Nuuk, the population of Nuuk, the largest city by far, is only 19,000 people, which by North American standards is not very big. So it's a very intimate place. You also notice the geographical location of these cities, and they're all on the southwest coast. And that is because seasonally, the majority of the coastline, especially in the winter months, is covered with ice. And these areas, well, specifically Sisimiut, Nuuk, and Qaqortoq in the south, are some of the only ice-free ports. Greenland recently went through a major transition, and this is a picture that I took last year from a propeller plane of the capital, Nuuk. And one feature that is being consistently celebrated is that long landing strip there at the Nuuk International Airport, the first of its kind, built by and for the Greenlandic people in their capital, where they used to have to fly into a former U.S. Air Force base and then take a smaller plane to get to their capital city. This airport opened actually on my birthday in 2024, and HX was front and center. We were the only expedition cruise company to be invited to participate in this historic event. And you can see in the bottom left there is a picture of me on that day with our product manager at the time, Lally, who's from Nuuk, and our CEO, Gebhard, pictured there and featured in a full page article in the local newspaper the next day, the charming Gebhard. And this signaled a new era in Greenlandic tourism, where for our programs alone, we offer the greatest access to Greenland. So you can fly from Newark, just outside of New York, on a United flight. That's part of our program. We've partnered with United to get to Nuuk. It's only a 2.5 hour flight. We also offer flights through the national airline Air Greenland from Copenhagen or Reykjavik if you might wanted to go to Iceland before your Greenland experience. And this optimizes Greenland because previously you would have to sail for 3 days, usually from Iceland, to get to Greenland before you even start your adventure. So the efficiency of traveling in Greenland has never been more effective. Another one of my favorite communities is Ilulissat. You can see the little town there on the left with the Jakobshavn ice spray, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, just spewing, building-sized icebergs out into the ocean. Or Sisimiut, the adventure and cultural capital of Greenland, where I was actually there in April of this year, attending a music festival, the Arctic Sounds Music Festival, which was fantastic. It was my second time there. And is also something that we include a partnership with the Arctic Sounds community on our ship visits. There's some incredible tours that you can do. There's some hiking, and it's also an area that still embraces kind of traditional kayaking methods. Greenland is just filled with natural wonders, from the incredible ice scapes to the alpine wonderland. It's also a destination where you can see and experience some of the most iconic Arctic wildlife. My personal favorite is the muskox. And then, of course, the charismatic polar bear and whales abound around the shores of Greenland. Now, to set expectations appropriately, where you go in Greenland really makes a difference for the type of wildlife that you can see. So if you want to see polar bears, for example, you need to go to the northwest or northeast of the country. If you want to see muskox, you need to go to the southern part or the northeastern part. Whales exist in different concentrations on all of those shorelines. The culture and community aspect is super important, where you get to go out and meet and connect with local people. You get to play or observe friendly sporting matches and make new friends. And at HX, Greenland is a really big part of our portfolio. We operate 4 ships during the summer months in Greenland. So Fridtjof Nansen starts there in late June, early July. Amundsen, after her Alaska season, comes over in September. And those 2 ships, which are slightly larger, they have a capacity of up to 490. They're the pride of the HX fleet. They operate on the western coast. And our smaller ships, MS Fram and MS Spitsbergen, they operate on the eastern coast, the more remote, less concentrated when it comes to human habitation. There are a range of experiences, from local excursions to some incredible hiking. And you can see here, each day we're offering included experiences like new hiking routes, community visits with included excursions. You can choose to indulge in paid experiences like I've told you about, glacier trekking, kayaking, or a photography boat. And there are some incredibly unique local excursions that we both include and give you the option to purchase if you'd like a more intimate experience. There are 4 ways For primary ways to experience Greenland with HX, on the western side, where Roald Amundsen and Fridtjof Nansen operate, there are the Grand Greenland voyages, the 11-day icy giants of Disco Bays, going from Nuuk up the coast as far north as Umanak, and then the mythical lands of the north, where you can go up as far as Qaanaaq, which is an incredible community, one of the last in the world to hunt using traditional means by kayak and harpoon. On the eastern side, we have the serene Greenland voyages, so anywhere from 10 to 15 days, going to the world's largest national park, the Northeast Greenland National Park, or Scoresbysund, the deepest fjord system in the world. I think we've got time for one more destination. So let's talk about Antarctica because HX takes more people to Antarctica each year than any other company. This is an incredible expedition destination, and our programs for our ships Amundsen and Nansen start in Buenos Aires. So you make your own way to Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. And from there, you have a hotel night included. You can go out and enjoy some of the beautiful Argentine beef, or maybe you would like a glass of the iconic Argentine Malbec red wine. And the next day, we include a charter flight, which is just over 3 hours from Buenos Aires to the bottom of the world, Ushuaia, which is where you meet your ship before setting sail to Antarctica. Now, to get from Ushuaia to Antarctica, it takes about a day and a half to 2 days at sea. And there's plenty to do at sea. There are a number of activities. There's our education program. There's some briefings you have to undertake. And of course, there's the opportunity to look out for wildlife. And the wildlife in the Drake Passage is particularly special because this body of water is home to numerous albatross species, including this beautiful bird here, which is the wandering albatross. The wandering albatross is the largest bird in the world with a wingspan of up to 3.7 meters or 12 feet long. And these birds will follow the ship throughout the crossing, along with numerous others, but it is a real kind of pinnacle experience to be able to observe a wandering albatross in its natural habitat. The Drake Passage has a reputation for being this kind of formidable, sea route that sailors in yesteryear used to fear. And this is part of when we talk about comfort, the comfort of our ship on passages like the Drake is really meaningful because our ships are optimized for waterways like this. They're slightly larger than the expedition standard, which means there's less movement, there's more stability. People often ask me, they say, Alex, what's the Drake Passage like? And here's what I tell them. Because I've been to Antarctica over 100 times. That means I've crossed the Drake Passage at least 200 times. I've spent more than a year of my life on the Drake Passage. And I would say that 20% of the time, it's beautifully calm. It's kind of the Drake Lake, they call it. 30% of the time, it's mild but relatively smooth. There's some movement, but relatively smooth. Another 30% of the time, there's what I would say moderate weather. You can notice the ship moving slightly, but it's nothing too extreme. And then 20% of the time, you can get severe weather where you feel the movement, and that is the Drake shake. So for 80% of the time, it's fairly moderate. So many people will go to Antarctica and not experience anywhere close to that intensity of the Drake Passage where it's got that reputation. And it is well worth the crossing because when you get there, you're immersed in this winter wonderland. Antarctica literally redefines your sense of scale. It has so many different dimensions to it. But one that I like to talk about is how it's governed. Because Antarctica is not owned by any single country. It is governed by what's called the Antarctic Treaty, which is a global treaty signed by over 50 countries, agreed upon in the height of the Cold War among sworn adversaries, sworn enemies, came together for the protection of this continent. And they dedicated the continent for peace and science, for prioritizing scientific investigation, for the progress of all mankind. And this is why our philosophy is so well suited to this destination. Our investment in science, our reverence for sustainability and environmental and social mindedness, our fleet are in their element when traveling in Antarctica. There are a range of activities. Each day you're going out in Antarctica and exploring and kind of designing your own experience based on your interests and priorities. And here are just a few examples of some of the things that you can undertake. And to give you a little taste of what it's like to be in Antarctica, I'll tell you a bit about some of the sites that I really enjoy. The first one is called Deception Island. And Deception Island is part of an outer group of islands called the South Shetland Islands. It's often the first kind of landfall you make after crossing the Drake Passage, or perhaps one of the last landings you might do before heading back to Argentina. And the reason it got its name is because it has a deceiving feature. Deception Island is actually an active volcano, and the island itself is a flooded volcanic caldera. So this is what it looks like from the outside. And the reason it's called Deception Island is unless you approach it from a certain direction, it looks as if it's a circular island with no particular safe harbor. But on closer inspection, you can see this little gap here, which is called Neptune's Bellows. And this is a feat of navigation like none other. You can see it on the left there. There's about 50 meters of navigable water that our captains seamlessly bring the ship into. And it is an experience in itself, being inside an active volcano. You literally have mist rising from the shoreline. There's a slight smell of sulfur. And because of the thermal nature of the volcanic activity, it's much less glaciated than other parts of Antarctica. So it's a really good place for stretching your legs, for example, and going for a little hike. It's also a place of really meaningful human history. There was a whaling station that existed here in the late 18, early 1900s. And it was also a jumping off point for a lot of heroic expeditions. The last volcanic event was in the late 1960s when much of this infrastructure was destroyed, but you can still see some of it to this day. Another site that I really like is a continental landing. So this is in the kind of heart of what's called the Gerlache Strait. And this is Antarctic mainland. It's a place called Nico Harbor. And Nico Harbor is a great place for wildlife watching. You can see in front of the people there's some nesting Gentoo penguins, and there's this very active glacier that sits just off the shoreline. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, when you go to Nico Harbor, you will see a piece of ice crumble off this glacier, which is affixed to the land, and birth an iceberg, so to speak, with this roaring, thunderous sound coming from it. Now, in this next picture, you can see the difference between Deception Island, with its lower glaciation, and continental Antarctica. Antarctica is 95% covered in glaciers. And this is a beautiful Nico Harbor in the background there. Another place around the corner from Nico Harbor is called Paradise Bay. Ooh, doesn't that sound nice? Paradise Bay. And it's a beautiful sheltered harbor. And one of the sites that we like to visit is called Almirante Brown Station. Now, Admiral William Brown, funny name for an Argentine, was the founder of the Argentine Navy. And here there's a small outpost, Argentine Scientific Outpost, which was actively occupied year-round until the late 1980s. And the reason it is no longer occupied year-round was that in the 1980s, a relief ship came to collect the team that had overwintered there. And when they arrived, they had bad news for one member of that team, the doctor, because they were unable to secure his replacement. And they said to the doctor, they said, "You're going to have to stay for 1 more year, and when we come back, we'll be sure to replace you." And he absolutely couldn't take it. He was very, very, very upset. And as the ship was sailing away, he'd had enough, and he lit the station on fire, being sure that the relief ship would see the fire and come and save people, so their survival wasn't dependent on the buildings that he was burning down. So the relief ship took everyone off of the station, including the doctor, sailed safely back to Argentina. The station was ruined, the doctor was imprisoned, and today some of those buildings remained. And occasionally, seasonally, there's kind of cleanup crews or small teams from the Argentine Antarctic program we can bump into there, but largely the base is no longer occupied. And so we go ashore here. This is another continental landing, and you can see some hiking trails up to a viewpoint. You can walk out on that little peninsula. And this is also a great site for kayaking and zodiac cruising and our science boat, photography boat, and there's just a ton of stuff to do in Paradise Bay. And a very endearing name indeed, isn't it? The last site I'll tell you about is called the Lemaire Channel. This is usually the southernmost extremity of our voyage, our highlights of Antarctica voyages, I should say. And this is just, it's actually better to think you have this in your background. This is just a real incredible waterway that we take our ships through, and you can see just like absolute, almost a vertical relief, these mountains just piercing through the ocean and soaring towards the sky. And we love to go through this channel at the end of the day at sunset, and people are sitting there, with their glass of wine and enjoying a dinner, or perhaps out on deck and just in the most incredible scenery. My favorite trip is our Highlights of Antarctica trip. It's a 12-day, 10 cruise night trip offered on both Roald Amundsen and Fridtjof Nansen between. There's a range of departures between November and March, and you just get the best of the best. You're down in the Antarctic Peninsula for 5 full days of exploration. You'll see a variety of weather, a variety of wildlife, and those memories will stay with you forever. So I hope some of this has changed the way you see the world, changed the way you see expedition cruising. Hopefully you've learned a little bit about HX and what we do. We've only scratched the surface. We have many more destinations that we could spend hours talking about. But we've touched on a few. Hopefully they've inspired you. And I'll pass the microphone over to Barrett to wrap us up and tell us about some of the incentives that we have if you're keen to join us on an HX voyage in the future.
Man, thanks so much, Alex. Appreciate you all being here. Just on behalf of Aiden, your BDM up there in the Northeast, was just texting him actually. He was curious how it was going, and he's on his way to Galapagos with us, one of our great destinations that I also love sharing about. I can really think of no better ambassador in what we have at HX than Alex. He's a friend, and with my military background and State Department days, it's just a joy to get together and talk travel and just hear him share his passion. And so that really is the gift that we want to bring to life for you as an advisor. And the best way to do so is obviously sharing the good news with your clients. And so at the end of the day, the more people that are getting that immersive, enriching kind of deep dive into a destination, then I think that's only better for the cruise industry in particular, obviously expedition, but more so just expanding that knowledge base around the idea of being a learned traveler, being just a well-traveled, intrepid traveler, and just being able to best see the world and appreciate, yeah, of course, food and culture, but just the people and their stories is why I live to travel. And my 75 countries are roaming the world is just can't get enough, and why I ended up at HX to be able to showcase that and talk with excitement around ways in which you can share that with your client base. And so a great opportunity to do so is our 130th year anniversary kind of summer of celebration promotions that we're doing. It's up to 25% off or a suite upgrade in Antarctica. That's kind of dealer's choice on what favors your client, but we're also featuring other destinations, Galapagos, Alaska, places like Alaska, exactly there, 5% off on all of our 26 excursions or expeditions. And so that right there is a stackable, combinable with our 130th anniversary to get an additional 5% off on our all-inclusive expeditions. And so the 130th anniversary incentive is something we've just launched May 1st. This is a 130 Amazon dollar gift card for every new booking that comes in from
Yeah, hey
Crown Cruise.
Barrett, just so you know, this is for consumers.
Okay. Well then, yeah, book it up. So
Yeah.
there we go. And then the 130th anniversary offer is an Antarctica expedition cruise. That's going to end the 30th as well of June, but that will allow you just to continue again to get the 25% off or a free up suite upgrade of your choice. We've also launched $1,000 per person air credit. And so that air credit in of itself is good for Antarctica and allows you just in a time and age right now where we're seeing airline prices skyrocket upwards of 27% throughout the summer to be able to take advantage of that and book into what will be fourth quarter 2026 Antarctica expeditions or first quarter 2027 is what that air credit is good for, up to 1,000 per person. And so with that, I don't know, Roger, if we have any questions there in the chat, but Alex and I are here to help. And everything kind of begins in and of itself with our advisor portal. So Roger will have that link. Ada can get you that link, but ultimately just start there with working with your travel advisor as a everyday traveler and
Yeah,
consumer.
absolutely. So, we have a couple questions here. Accessibility. So, I
Mhm.
mean, obviously, Antarctica is not a particularly wheelchair accessible place, right? And neither is Greenland for that matter. So, talk a little bit about that. Like, so if people have some degree of mobility limitations, like, at what point is it doable or not doable?
That's a great question and something we take a lot of pride in. Um, Historically, the expedition industry has not been very accommodating for people with limited mobility. And there's been a big opportunity. I mean, one of the things I take a lot of joy in is introducing people to these inspiring destinations, no matter what they're coming to that experience with, and kind of working around those limitations. So, where other companies will over-index in that adventure category, and you have to go on a 3-hour hike, or else you're not experiencing it in the way that they want. We have a range of activities. We have elevators on 4 out of our 5 ships. We have ADA, American Disability Association approved cabins with extra wide doors and showers. So we'll always have a few people who are choosing a kind of a lighter touch experience, and our expedition teams are set up to cater for those preferences and really make sure that people aren't missing out, that they're able to do as much as they feel comfortable with, and people really enjoy those experiences.
That's
And
that's
I
sorry,
would
go
just
ahead.
add too, yeah, sure, is that that's something that I harp on a lot is just being able to deliver that experience for the everyday traveler. And as Alex mentioned, the ADA compliance, but we can actually get someone on a wheelchair in a place like you mentioned in Antarctica and get them to the White Continent. And I don't know of another expedition company that can really stand by that. And so that's something again where we took a 102-year-old woman to Antarctica recently. We took an 87-year-old gentleman to Galapagos, and it's that type of traveler who goes, I think those days are behind me. And if our mission is to change the way we see the world at HX, then I can think of no better way to bring that to life than to say, don't let mobility be the thing that holds you back. Galapagos might be a different story. As we mentioned, there isn't an elevator on the ship. It's rocky. It's a different kind of substance of walking across the islands. But our other destinations, particularly somewhere like Alaska, are just places I know that we really can deliver on that ability for someone to say, hey, I want to go, I want to experience, let's change the way I see the world and the perspective I have, and let's get them on board and take off.
That's great. That's great. So, one more question here for you before we wrap it up. So, when it comes to making a decision about what kind of expedition you want to do, right? Let's say somebody is interested in doing something that's polar, so to speak, right? So, if they were making a decision between Antarctica and Greenland and Arctic, like, what would be the consideration? Why would somebody choose to go north as opposed to go south? And like, what would be a reason somebody would want to go south instead of going north?
Oof, this is like the $1 million question, Roger. I love
Yeah.
this one. So, so I get asked this a lot, and I frame it like this. If I had never been to any of these places, but I did know in my heart what I know now, and I could only choose one, I would choose Antarctica. It is like going to another planet. It's completely like mind blowing. But having been to these places, if I could only continue to go to one, I would continue going to Greenland. It would be the Arctic. And I think for people who aren't necessarily in exactly the same situation as me with that knowledge, I would say going to Antarctica, as I've described, is like going to another planet. If you want that like nature wilderness experience and to feel as distant as possible from your everyday lives and kind of the cities we live in, that is the destination for you. If you want very comparable kind of natural wonders, I mean, Greenland has fantastic icebergs and mountains and glaciers and all of that, but you want that human story, you like to have a human connection. You like to meet local people and see how they live and what their perspectives are. Then the Arctic is the place for you. That's how I would describe it.
It's great. That's awesome. Okay, great. Well, listen, I want to thank you guys both. Before we get going, I do want to let you know there is one additional offer that we have as a result of this evening tonight that you all are eligible for. And that's if you do make a reservation with HX with your Crown Cruise Vacations advisor in the next 30 days. It's going to be a double shipboard credit offer. So on top of the up to 35% savings, you'll also get $400 in shipboard credit, I believe, from HX. We get 200 from our relationship with our wonderful consortia ensemble, and then as a result of being here tonight, you'll also be eligible for an additional 200 on top of that. So it's double the shipboard credit, which is nice. And that means, hey, look, if you want to get an extra parka or something along those lines, because there is outfitting gear and stuff like that that you might want to purchase and bring home. And you can do that while you're on board these ships.
Nice one. Great thing to
Sure.
highlight, Roger. And I just want to say thank you, Crown Cruises, for our partnership. It was great meeting you in person a few weeks ago,
Absolutely.
and really encourage everyone on this call to call your Crown Cruises partner and have a discussion about where your next trip might be. Hopefully, this has inspired you. And to the three of you on the call, thank you so much for spending your Thursday evening with me. It was really a pleasure to be chatting with you today.
So excellent. Alex, Barrett, thank you all so
Yep.
much. And thank you to everybody that joined us today for spending part of your evening with us. And we hope we're going to hear from you soon.
Have a great
Sounds
night,
good.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. See
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.